And what are some of the other ones now that you are serving on?
Well, with
subcommittees
with public safety, then that automatically also moved me over into. I guess I would go sit in with the veterinary board as well, because that falls under public safety.
Okay.
So
I was wondering what the town's role is with the veterinary board.
So with the veterinary board, that was the board system was established back in the 70s within the province, and that was just to ensure that municipalities help fund setting up clinics, so that way we could provide space for vets to come out and make sure that we've got services here within the community. So, a young vet coming out to Neepawa, they've got a clinic to operate out of, and they don't have to physically own the bricks and mortar, even though they are, our vet is investing lots of money in improving her practice. Yeah. She doesn't physically have to own the bricks and mortar.
She doesn't have to build a building from the foundation up.
Exactly.
There. Yeah. So very similar running then to the medical clinic, the people clinic.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
And the same kind of relationship.
That's right, and it's also worked with our rural partners as well.
So I guess that's maybe not universal municipalities, but a sort of a responsibility that.
That's correct. Yes.
That they're looking at as I guess public safety. I hadn't really thought of it that way, but.
Yeah. Well, when you start talking animal health and welfare and care. It does come in under the public safety envelope. And in
a rural area, as opposed to, say, in the downtown city, we're not just talking cats and dogs here. We're talking livestock. We're talking all that kinds of stuff as well.
100%.
Yeah. And so now the other one you mentioned was White Mud Watershed.
Yes. White Mud Watershed, I enjoy. Previous to coming on, I was a 10-year volunteer with Ducks Unlimited.
Okay, yeah.
I'm kind of passionate about seeing seeing wetlands preserved, working with our rural partners. Yeah. And when you start talking watershed, we obviously understand as a community how important watershed management is, as we were kind of at the bottom end of a really horrible event.
Indeed.
Just over a year ago.
Yeah.
So, being a part of watershed, it's about being a part of the region and seeing how we manage water and we can protect the community and our environment. So that one was just because of interest, really 100%.
I think White Mud Watershed, it was one of the first of its kind in the province, or I don't know, nationally.
Absolutely,
I'm not sure.
Absolutely. And it's also one of the larger ones in the province.
Yeah.
And when you take a look at, how wide ranging we are and how much water actually flows through this region and terminates, it's incredible, and there's a lot to manage. And I was stunned to learn how fast and how much water can pick up and be down to Lake Manitoba, how quickly, because of Riding Mountain National Park, right? And so, I think even everyone on the watershed kind of got a good understanding now of, there is monies that need to be invested in the watershed so that we can protect communities, and it's really important.
I mean, it is a sort of a combination of the environmental and preserving these environmental areas, and also protecting people.
Yes.
And learning to live, I guess, together. And
I 100. Yeah, that's completely what it is. So.
Yeah. So what kind of because you probably know this as what are your real interests? What kind of projects does White Mud Watershed undertake in this area?
Oh, White Mud Watershed has done so much. Whether they start talking, some of the tree planting that they've done, they've helped establish shelter belts. So it's, when you see watershed, everyone just thinks it's strictly about the water. It's not. It's so much more. It's about, land erosion, things like that. So we start talking shelter belts.
Yeah.
Working around, conservation corridors. It's about working with landowners, whether we're starting to talk water storage projects.
Right.
There's been huge investments made along the drainage systems that are in place. So that when you start taking the drains, there had been some areas, with water backups around Dead Lake, which are just southeast of Gladstone, but has massive impact there. And watershed has to work how we can manage that water flow to lessen the impact down there, and then how we can keep water moving there so we can get to Lake Manitoba as well.
Yeah, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, we are on a, especially when you get up onto the mountain, we're on a very high ground. Everything flows out kind of from where we are.
Well, you know, when you take that the white mud really begins in Neepawa,
Yeah.
right? It tells you just how important and
Yeah.
key an area this is. You know, with Boggy Creek and Stony Creek
Yeah.
converging in our community just to really create
Yeah.
white mud. Yeah.
And I
So-
mean, I grew up near Polonia, so I'm really
Oh,
up
yes.
on the,
Yeah, you're familiar with it.
up
then.
on the hills there. And I
Yep.
remember as a child seeing the white mud watershed signs around
Yes.
and various, I thought they had something to do with trees because they were always around trees.
Yes.
So it took me until a while to understand the whole scope of,
Yes. Well, you know, when you take when we start talking the tree planting, they realized they could do a lot in stabilizing land and and minimizing washouts and things like that. Again, part of watershed management.
so have I missed anything on your council committees? Because you've got this extensive sort of list here of
Well,
things that you're,
I also do some work with human resources.
Okay.
But you know, when we start talking human resources, that that can be everything to working with individuals, you know, and how that works with administration, and it can be things like working with union contracts. It's
Right.
it's.
So are council members sort of heavily involved in that, or does the bulk of that really come from within the staff of the administration?
Well, so this is probably one of the first lessons I think everyone on council should learn.
Yeah.
Is that when you're on council has one employee, and that is our CAO. So, meaning that a councillor is to not go in and sit at someone else's desk and direct. We have one employee, and our CAO, Colleen Sanchishan. So she meets with us, with her staff, and her, and she manages that staff. When she needs to involve the Human Resources Committee, there are 2 council members who sit on Human Resources. That would be myself and Mayor Blake McCutcheon. And it's minimal impact. Minimal people need to know when we start talking private affairs from a human resources issue, because that employee is entitled to that confidentiality. And it's only when we start getting to larger issues, like if we're talking, budgets, creating positions and things like that, does it really ever flow out to council in a large way? So, but
that makes sense.
There are a number of a lot of human resource meetings that do occur. Quite often they'll happen after a council meeting, or there'll be we'll call you in on a Wednesday or morning, and Mayor McCutcheon and myself will meet with Colleen to address those issues.
Yeah, and as a rapidly growing town, it might be the conversation is we need more resources. So
it's always
without getting into any confidential information, I think that's probably safe to say.
Always, yes.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about Neepawa is that our rapidly growing population, I keep on saying that because it is a rapidly growing population, is a result of immigration, which is not, I mean, I guess it's becoming more common, but in rural areas, really not that common. And a lot of that is coming, of course, from High Life, which is the, not solely from High Life, but a lot of it is coming through there. So that is sort of a single industry. They're the biggest by far employer in town. So what importance do you see in bringing in some sort of secondary industries, more industry to this area?
As sitting on council, we've worked through different times where we've worked with site locators and things like that, trying to attract that next industry. I think one of the biggest things when we start looking at industry and jobs within the community, everyone likes to see the best way to be is say, we want to see smokestacks. We're thinking factories and large employers showing up. Well, those are exceptionally difficult to attract, and they're few and far between. One of the great things that council has worked with is with our economic development officer, Marilyn Crew, is by working to ensure that we have a strong small business sector. And if you have a strong small business sector, I believe, not only can we fill jobs for, let's say, spouses of people at High Life, right? those small businesses, if we see a strong small business core, that will also be drivers to help us attract other industries to the community. It's a relentless process.
Yeah.
We subscribe and we participate in larger economic region projects like the Yellowhead project. Our economic development officer sat on a soybean plant attraction project. Things like that. It's like I said, you have to work tirelessly for a lot of years, and you may get that chance. We were 11th hour on one massive project that just never came to fruition. And as a council, it's kind of, darn, what did we learn? What do we need to do to ensure that we're ready for that next opportunity? And that's one of the reasons why you see that continued reinvestment in lagoon upgrades, water upgrades that we're seeing here, because we realize, if we're going to attract that next industry, we have to have that infrastructure to support it if it does show.
And I had a great chat with Howard Buffy about
Yes,
the
you did. I watched it. I really enjoyed that interview.
Yeah.
Yes. I've toured the water plant. He gave me the tour. I've seen how
The secret tour.
to get the Neepawa makes its clear water, and I would encourage any of my fellow councillors to go do it, because if you want, we're very fortunate. We have someone who's passionate about water.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Which is wonderful. Are we? And maybe you can't answer this. Maybe you can. I don't know. Are we really focusing on sort of agriculturally based industry, or are we really prepared to diversify in whatever direction things take us?
As a community, I know we're ready to go any and every direction. Neepawa has participated to a level that we can. On the gasifier project out at the
which is an exciting project there.
And they're still working to try to develop that to commercialization of that. So does that mean that we're going to see a ton of jobs maybe show up in Neepawa because it became a commercialized project? Maybe not. But it's economic development within the region, and if we're in the hub, we will benefit. So
that's definitely true. And one of the things we've been looking at as well recently is just talking to entrepreneurs in town. People who are starting businesses. Do you think this is a good place to start a business?
Someone, let's see we're 17 years as a business owners on Main Street. So, I would tell anyone and everyone, invest, buy into this community because it's something special. You roll up your sleeves and they will, be involved, and they will support you.
And what do you think that we need to see more of in this sort of area, and what ways can council sort of foster that? That's a really hard one to say. Because, to just say retail, that I'm not saying that's the answer. What we need are passionate entrepreneurs. And to give them an environment that's easy for them to set up, establish, and do business. I don't know what that next great idea is for Neepawa. I really don't. Many years ago, if our entrepreneurs didn't evolve and change, we would still be a salt mining community. True enough. Or no community.
That's done and gone. And it's evolved, and whether we've seen the investments, the continued investments in our pressure treated lumber industry, and things like that, there are more opportunities that will come to this community. It's just, and we know they're out there and they're kicking doors and they're looking. It's just there's lots of things that are in Neepawa's future. Just can't say when that date's going to be. We kind of. The crystal ball isn't clear yet. No, that's not. That's 100%. Yes.
So circling back around to sort of our increased population due to immigration, I think this creates a different, a bit of a barrier for something like council, where we have a significant proportion of our adult population who cannot run for council and cannot vote because they're not citizens yet. Do you find that to be the case here, or? If
I could have my way, 1 year from today, I would see that we have a new Canadian who's in our community, who speaks Tagalog is sitting on the Neepawa Council. I truly believe that's something that our council would benefit from, and to bring that new perspective there.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate, with the people that we have now within the community that are new Canadians, are new residents, and they are changing how we see and interact. And if there's anything that I could do to help maybe get that person to put their hat into that ring.
Maybe they're listening right now.
You stop, you ask me a question, and I'll be your biggest supporter to help you on that way, because I believe it is something that Neepawa needs.
So the process for someone to run for council, because you've done it a couple times now, what's that process?
You're a Canadian citizen.
Yep.
You come in, you get your nomination forms, you get your 50 signatures, you're running for council. That's it.
That's it. That's the whole thing.
It's a very simple process.
Yeah.
It really is. You just get that form, and then you get your signatures from other Canadian citizens that are residents, and you're in the race. So
easy as that. Yeah.
Easy as that. And if you're passionate about the community at large, I would love to see you there at the table.
Now, in the meantime, for people who've only been here a year, 2 years, 3 years, what are the best ways for them to get involved with municipal affairs, with municipal projects, politics, anything like that?
If you're passionate about a project and you're passionate about an issue, we always want to hear from you.
Yeah.
We want to be a part of that. It was interesting when we started. I'll go back to the bike project, and that came in on the heels of us completing our regional recreation report. And when we started that regional recreation report, I'd never heard of the term a pump track, things like that.
Yeah.
And so we started talking, and then it kind of evolved through in that regional recreation report. And then I discovered we had the Manitoba mountain bikers, the Pinoy Manitoba mountain bikers here in the community. Met them, started talking with them, and we actually got their members kind of got involved. They helped very early on as the park was establishing. They worked tirelessly in the background to how it runs. I think if you have a project or something that you're passionate about, just come forward. Council's always seeking out those people who wants to work with people who want to see the community be better.
Yeah. And it seems like from talking to you, from talking to other councillors as well, that the council and the town office and everyone is very, very open to ideas, to people, to suggestions, to complaints, to compliments, whatever people want to bring.
I couldn't even begin to tell you how much I didn't know before I got to council. And so I know that's the same when it comes to what we can do for our community, because when you start talking to the residents, I think one of the greatest lies anyone in politics says, I know the issues and that of the people at the table. We don't. Everyone has different issues that are important to them. So I want to work with as many people as possible, so that way we make sure that we are representing them as well as we can.
So for yourself, you've mentioned politics is something that interests you in general.
Yes.
So, serving on municipal council now, what's next for you? Are you wanting to continue with that? Are you wanting to?
Yeah, I think I am. I'm enjoying what I do here with council. As of right now, I can't envision anything else, and I'm happy with who I work with, the administration team, and I love and I'm passionate about my community. So.
Yeah. And so we can't predict what's going to happen, but what would you love to see happening in this community 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road?
I would say 5 years from now, I would love to see an investment, a significant investment with the province and the rural partners in upgrading our hospital. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah.
To me, that's really important. 10 years from now, I would like the signs for our community to change from the town of Neepawa to the city of Neepawa. That's where I see our community. I'll be honest, I think that's where we are and where
Yeah.
we're going. I don't want to be known as the town of Neepawa anymore, but the city.
Yep.
And I think we have to work towards that vision. So, and
Yeah.
you know, along that way, we're going to continue to invest in, you know, recreation that meets the needs of the citizens. You know, and you know, prime example. If we were to go back 15 years ago, would we have thought of significant investments in basketball in our community? No.
Yeah.
But now it's pretty darn important.
Yeah.
When we see gymnastics and we're seeing, you know, 200 some plus members,
Yeah.
pretty darn important. We've still got our traditional recreation forms and team sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to make sure that we're representing all our citizens, and you know, finding ways that we can invest it back in them, and then as well, we also have to look at, you know, improving and maintaining this infrastructure, because we know we've got a lot of aging areas in the community, and every time we build a new neighborhood, there's significant investments that have to occur there as well.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we've just seen a street torn up, not half a block from here.
Yes.
And discovered many things while digging in there. So
many surprises.
many surprises.
Yes, many
unfortunate.
surprises. Yeah.
Not happy surprises. Unfortunately.
Not happy surprises, but you know, our town staff.
That's what growth looks like.
Yeah, that's what growth looks like. Our town staff is working tirelessly.
I've been very impressed with.
Yeah, and now they've got to also work. You know, it's interesting because now we also have to look at how we work with our provincial counterparts, because those upgrades that we had to make to water and sewer that happened along Mountain.
Yeah.
Mountain is provincial jurisdiction. It's a provincial road. So
Yeah.
now, you know, it's those interactions are there. So we have to be good partners within the province as well.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that when we were talking about the relationship with the province earlier. Is I know that some roads are provincial and some roads are municipal.
That's
and
correct.
I'm not always certain which ones are which.
That's correct. Yes.
So because I wouldn't have thought that Mountain Avenue, which isn't a highway, would be under provincial jurisdiction, but it is.
It's the old highway number 5.
It's the old okay. Now that makes sense.
That's
Okay.
right. Yes.
That it is, which
Yep.
is like a gravel road going off somewhere now, but
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yep. So.
Yeah. I think 15 years ago, this town, I mean, we were a retirement community, really.
Yes.
A satellite community for Brandon. We're, you
Yeah.
know, 45 minutes out of Brandon. And today we are a community of a lot of young families. Our schools have boomed.
Yes.
Like we literally have built a new school.
Yes.
So are the changes in what we're providing at the time, you mentioned the basketball and stuff like that, do you think there's a lot more of those related to the changing demographics of the community?
Yeah. I mean, it's. I don't even know how I would want to phrase that or answer that. I mean, yeah, it's a significant portion of that change in the demographic, which, you know, young families.
Yeah.
You know, it's just been so refreshing to see, because it's brought new opportunities for the whole community, because, you know, new classrooms, new technology, new gymnasiums. You know, those are things many towns don't get to experience, and that's because of our rapid growth and this changing demographic. It's fantastic. You know, you talk about the Neepawa as a community that's growing because of immigration. You know, in a way, prior to what's happened, Neepawa was a town that survived as a result of attrition. Really, when you took a look at our retirement community, right?
Yeah.
Neepawa sat dormant, and we watched a lot of the rural municipalities around us kind of dwindle. You know, that was the sell the farm, retire, move to town. You know, when as we were doing the recreation reports, I read back to some stats that went back into the 60s. You know, at one time we saw 2,600 residents living in the arm of Rosedale. Now they're down to 1,500, 1,600.
Yeah.
Those people weren't going to be there to be a part of Neepawa's maintaining.
Yeah.
So this is why this was such an opportunity for our community to see this growth, because you know, we, like I said, we were a town that survived because of attrition, and now we're a community growing, a community booming because of immigration. Yeah. Which is fantastic.
And I think to some degree that is also happening outward into Rosedale, into Gladstone, into various other areas as well.
Exactly. Yes.
which is, I mean, and thinking of Eden, which is I know I'm not under your jurisdiction at all,
Right.
but was a town that kind of dwindled down to a few houses, and now there's people moving in there, and the school
Exactly.
is still running there and things like that.
Well,
So
the schools in those communities need to function because of the capacities we're at in our schools.
Yeah.
So it's created opportunities for surrounding areas. So,
yeah.
mhm.
So if there is one thing that you would want people to understand about your role on council or the role of council in the town in general, what would it be?
The one thing, I guess, as a counselor, realistically, our job is not to manage the day-to-day activities. Our job is really to give process. It's our job to give direction to administration. But if you're looking at a counselor, it's not our job to go in and go give the guy, cutting grass heck or something like that, or how the garbage is getting picked up. Our job is really to set policy, pass law, and that is the role of the counselor. And that was one thing that it took me a long time to really kind of wrap my head around the fact, when you come in, you're gonna,
Change the world.
You're gonna change the world, but no, really, it's our job to come in and set policy, pass bylaw, and make sure that everything that our administration does can happen under, under provincial jurisdiction, because essentially it's council voting that gives them that ability.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming and joining me here today.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it.
And we will see you all next time.